From futuristic turbine-powered concepts to quirky electric pickups, and from radical rotary-engine experiments to micro-camper SUVs, Chevrolet's history is packed with vehicles that defy convention and challenge expectations. In this hour-long episode, we dive deep into 35 of the strangest cars that push the boundaries of design, technology, and imagination in ways you've never seen before. Get ready to explore the weird side of Chevy's legacy, where innovation sometimes meant downright oddity. Number 35. 1997 Chevrolet S10 Electric. An all-electric version of Chevy's compact pickup that was way ahead of its time. Introduced as a limited production factory EV, it was in fact the first fully electric pickup from any major automaker. Outwardly, it looked like an ordinary S10 truck, but under the hood, or rather where the engine should be, it hid an 85-kilowatt induction motor taken from GM's Evone program. That meant no gas engine, just a massive bank of batteries weighing over a ton under the bed, giving it a roughly 45-mile range before needing a recharge. The S10 Electric was a quiet anomaly on the road. No rumbling V8, no exhaust fumes, and even front-wheel drive, which is almost unheard of in pickups. For prospective buyers, it was only sold to fleets, utilities, and government agencies for testing and compliance, so most Americans only saw these trucks as service vehicles. Its slow speed and short range, enforced by aging lead-acid batteries, made it more of a quirky novelty than a practical work truck. A flat-out sprint was an eternity. Hitting 50 miles per hour took over 13 seconds in stock form, and it topped out at just about 70 miles per hour. GM made only a few hundred, just 492 in total, and most were later recalled and destroyed like GM's other 1990s EVs, leaving only a handful of survivors. Now, nearly 3 decades later, the Chevy S10 Electric remains an odd footnote in automotive history, a silent, wheel-driven curiosity that previewed the electric pickup trucks of the future. Although largely forgotten, it stands as one of the strangest pickups ever made, a ghostly reminder of GM's bold but short-lived experimentation in the late 1990s. Number 34. 1990 Chevrolet Corvette CERV III. The Chevrolet Corvette CERV III wasn't just a concept car, it was an outrageous supercar prototype born from the minds of engineers who seemed determined to throw every piece of futuristic tech into one fiberglass shell. CERV stood for Chevrolet Engineering Research Vehicle, and the CERV III, revealed in 1990 at the Detroit Auto Show, was the third and final chapter in a line of mad science projects that stretched back to the early 1960s. While the first two CERVs were testbeds for suspension and chassis work, the CERV III went all-out twin-turbocharged 5.7-liter V8 built by Lotus, punching out a monstrous 650 horsepower. But that wasn't all. It had full-time all-wheel drive, four-wheel steering, active suspension that could adjust itself on the fly, a carbon fiber and Kevlar body, and a futuristic computer-controlled dashboard that looked like it came straight out of a fighter jet. This wasn't just a concept, it was fully functional and, according to GM, capable of reaching speeds up to 225 miles per hour. That would have made it one of the fastest road cars on Earth if it had ever been sold. But here's the weirdest part. The CERV III was never really intended for production. It was more like a rolling trophy, a high-tech showpiece meant to demonstrate what GM could do if money and practicality weren't issues. With its dramatic shape, clamshell doors, and shark-like silhouette, it looked like something Batman might drive in a futuristic drag race. In the end, the CERV III faded into obscurity, but not before leaving a legacy of wild ambition and sci-fi engineering. Today, it's locked away in GM's Heritage Center, a bizarre, beautiful beast that almost redefined what a Corvette could be. Number 33. 1990 Chevrolet Lumina APV. The Chevrolet Lumina APV, a minivan that looked like it had just landed from outer space rather than rolled off an American assembly line. Designed during a time when automakers were desperately trying to reimagine the family vehicle, the Lumina APV was Chevrolet's bold and bizarre entry into the world of futuristic minivans. It earned the nickname Dustbuster for a reason. Its extended, sharply sloped windshield and nose looked uncannily like a handheld vacuum cleaner. From the side, it was a wedge on wheels, low in the front, high in the back, with a long, bulging greenhouse that made the driver feel like they were piloting a bubble. But it wasn't just the styling that made the Lumina APV weird. It was also constructed with plastic body panels, specifically dent-resistant composite plastic over a galvanized steel frame. This was similar to the Pontiac Fiero and Saturn models of the same era, but for a large family van, it felt downright strange. Sitting behind the wheel, you were met with an unusually distant dashboard. The base of the windshield stretched so far ahead, it seemed like the wipers belonged on another car entirely. The driver's perspective was more akin to a spaceship than a suburban grocery getter. Chevy packed it with features meant to impress early tech adopters, like digital instrumentation, modular seating, and a futuristic wraparound dash. But families weren't sold. The van's styling proved too radical, too alien, and despite GM's best efforts, the Lumina APV was eventually phased out by the late 1990s. Today, it's remembered less for its practicality and more for its audacious attempt to redefine the American minivan. Equal parts spaceship and station wagon, the Lumina APV earns its place on this list as a truly strange detour in Chevrolet's family car journey. Number 32. 1989 Chevrolet Camaro IROC-Z. The Chevrolet Camaro IROC-Z concept, also known as the California Camaro, a wild, one-off experiment that looked more like a Hot Wheels toy than a real-life muscle car. At a glance, it screamed drama, with oversized gull-wing doors that swung skyward and a body kit that made the production IROC-Z look tame in comparison. Built as a show car for the Los Angeles Auto Show, it was Chevrolet's attempt to fuse West Coast flash with futuristic fantasy. Underneath the flamboyant skin sat a 250 horsepower V6, which was more about smooth cruising than raw power, but it was the rest of the package that made it truly strange. Inside, the cockpit felt more like the bridge of a spacecraft than the cabin of a Camaro. It had aviation-style gauges, an aircraft-inspired steering yoke, and no joke, a built-in vacuum cleaner in the center console. That's right, Chevy decided the future of driving involved sucking up crumbs between drag races. The entire interior was wrapped in leather and suede, and nearly everything that could be digital was digital, a bold move for a time when most cars still had analog clocks and cassette decks. Even more bizarre, this Camaro didn't have side mirrors. Instead, it featured small video cameras feeding live images to tiny screens inside the cabin, a concept that was decades ahead of its time but completely impractical back then. Of course, none of it ever made it to production. The California Camaro remained just a concept, a flamboyant flash in the pan that captured the excess of the late 1980s. Equal parts retro muscle and sci-fi daydream, this weird one-off proved that when Chevy lets its designers off the leash, the results can be absolutely unforgettable and undeniably strange. Number 31. 1988 Chevrolet Corsica 5-door hatchback. A car that felt like it was stuck between two worlds and never quite figured out what it wanted to be. At its core, the Corsica was meant to be a sensible, front-wheel drive compact sedan for the average American driver, and in its standard 4-door guise, it fulfilled that role without much fanfare. But then, in an odd twist, Chevrolet decided to graft a hatch onto the back, creating a 5-door variant that was neither a proper station wagon nor a traditional sedan. The result was a Frankenstein profile that left consumers scratching their heads. The hatchback version kept the same overall dimensions and structure of the sedan, but with a massive one-piece liftgate that stretched all the way to the roofline. This should have made it a practical cargo hauler, but oddly enough, it didn't offer much more usable space than the trunk model. Worse yet, the design threw off the proportions of the car, making it look unusually long in the rear and oddly top-heavy. It didn't help that the taillights and rear glass were stretched into awkward shapes to accommodate the new hatch. Offered only briefly and in limited trims, the Corsica hatchback never gained traction with buyers. Americans weren't looking for awkward 5-door sedans in the late 1980s. They wanted proper wagons or true minivan. As a result, this experiment quietly disappeared from Chevy's lineup after a few short years. Today, the 5-door Corsica is a rarely seen oddity, a half-hearted attempt to bridge practicality and design that ended up being neither. It wasn't bold enough to be remembered as innovative, but it was strange enough to earn a spot among Chevrolet's weirdest production decisions. In the end, it remains a textbook example of what happens when form and function get their wires crossed. Number 30. 1987 Chevrolet Express. Not to be confused with the later full-size production van that borrowed its name, the original Express was a wedge-shaped, turbine-inspired concept car that Chevrolet unveiled at the 1987 Detroit Auto Show. Its wild styling and high-concept tech made it one of the most bizarre and visually arresting Chevys ever imagined. The Express concept featured a low-slung, aerodynamic body sculpted from lightweight composites and fiberglass, with deeply recessed wheels hidden under exaggerated fenders and a sweeping windshield that wrapped nearly 180 degrees around the cockpit. The front looked like a stealth fighter jet, complete with a pointed nose and retractable lighting system. Instead of traditional doors, the Express had a full canopy-style cockpit that lifted upwards, allowing driver and passengers to step in like they were boarding a space shuttle. But the real madness lay under the skin. The car was envisioned to be powered by a gas turbine engine, something more commonly found in aircraft than automobiles. It also boasted all-wheel drive, four-wheel steering, and computerized suspension, none of which were remotely common at the time. Inside, the cabin featured digital instrumentation, a yoke-style steering controller, and a fully voice-activated control system, a concept decades ahead of Siri or Alexa. Of course, the Express never saw production. It was a rolling design study, a glimpse into what Chevrolet's engineers thought the year 2000 might look like. Today, the 1987 Express stands as a bold and deeply weird snapshot of General Motors' future-facing imagination. Though entirely impractical, it remains one of the most radical and unforgettable concept cars ever to wear the Chevy bow tie. Number 29. 1987 Chevrolet Sprint Turbo. Developed in collaboration with Suzuki, the Sprint Turbo was essentially a rebranded Suzuki Cultus, but with a surprising twist under the hood. Instead of the usual naturally aspirated engine, this pint-sized hatchback packed a 1-liter, 3-cylinder turbocharged motor that produced around 70 horsepower, a modest figure by today's standards, but quite zesty for such a small package back then. What made the Sprint Turbo really stand out was how light and nimble it was. Weighing just over 2,000 pounds, it could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 9 seconds, an impressive feat considering its tiny engine. It was one of the few American market cars that fit into the Japanese K-car philosophy, emphasizing efficiency, compact size, and turbocharged performance in one neat bundle. Inside, the Sprint Turbo was simple but functional, with sporty touches like a tachometer and unique badging to hint at its turbocharged heart. However, the car's modest size and quirky 3-cylinder noise made it an oddity among Chevrolet's traditionally muscle-bound reputation. While Chevy was known for roaring V8s and big, bold designs, here was a tiny car designed to sip fuel and zip around city streets. Despite its strange fit in Chevy's lineup, the Sprint Turbo attracted a niche audience who appreciated its economical yet spirited nature. Unfortunately, it wasn't a huge commercial success and was discontinued after a few years. Today, the 1987 Chevrolet Sprint Turbo is a fascinating relic, a glimpse of Chevy experimenting with downsized, turbocharged engines long before it became mainstream. It's one of the quirkiest and most unexpected chapters in Chevrolet's history of innovation and oddities. Number 28. 1986 Chevrolet Corvette Indy. This high-tech, mid-engine Corvette concept was a bold departure from the traditional front-engine layout that had defined the Corvette for decades. With a sleek, aerodynamic body and a racing pedigree baked into its DNA, the Corvette Indy was Chevrolet's vision of what a supercar could be in the future. Underneath its striking exterior hid a ferocious twin-turbocharged V8 engine producing over 600 horsepower, derived from IndyCar racing technology. This power plant was paired with an advanced all-wheel drive system and four-wheel steering, both revolutionary features for a production sports car at the time. The active suspension system could adapt in real time to road conditions, delivering razor-sharp handling that put this concept in a league of its own. The car also featured digital CRT displays inside the cockpit, replacing traditional gauges with futuristic readouts that felt like something out of a sci-fi movie. One of the most mind-boggling innovations was the inclusion of a rear-view camera, a rarity in the mid-1980s, which sent live video to a screen inside the car, a glimpse into the future of automotive safety and convenience. The body itself was sculpted with aerodynamics in mind, featuring aggressive vents, a low-slung stance, and a striking wedge shape that screams speed even while standing still. Despite its incredible tech and radical design, the Corvette Indy never made it to production, remaining a wild dream in Chevy's experimental vault. However, many of its ideas foreshadowed technologies that would become commonplace in high-performance cars decades later. The 1986 Corvette Indy stands as a testament to Chevrolet's willingness to push boundaries and dream big, even if the world wasn't quite ready for it yet. Number 27. 1986 Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS Aerocoupe. The Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS Aerocoupe, NASCAR-inspired oddity that married racing tech with an unmistakably awkward street presence. Unlike most Monte Carlos, the Aerocoupe featured a dramatically extended, bubble-shaped rear window that seemed more at home on a spaceship than a family coupe. This large, fastback-style rear glass was designed with a very specific purpose in mind: to improve aerodynamics and help Chevy's NASCAR teams dominate on the track. The idea was to reduce drag and increase high-speed stability during NASCAR races by smoothing airflow over the roofline and trailing edge. The design was radical and unusual, a big departure from the boxier, more traditional Monte Carlo shapes fans were used to. On the racetrack, it was a legitimate competitive advantage, but on the street, the Aerocoupe was a strange sight. Its exaggerated rear bubble gave it an almost top-heavy silhouette that some found downright odd. Only a limited number of Aerocoupes were produced between 1986 and 1987 to meet NASCAR homologation rules, making it a rare bird among muscle cars. Buyers who snapped one up got a powerful V8 engine, sporty suspension tweaks, and the bragging rights of owning a street-legal race car cousin. Yet the unique rear window divided opinion, with some appreciating its boldness while others mocked it as a styling misstep. Today, the Monte Carlo SS Aerocoupe stands as a curious chapter in Chevrolet's performance history, a car that blurred the lines between race and road in a way few others did. Its combination of raw power and aerodynamic experimentation marks it as one of Chevy's strangest production models. For fans of NASCAR heritage and automotive oddities alike, the Aerocoupe remains a fascinating, if somewhat awkward, piece of muscle car lore. Number 26. 1980 Chevrolet Citation X-11, a hot hatch Citation. While the Citation itself was criticized for quality issues and uninspired styling, the X-11 aimed to shake things up with a more aggressive attitude and a handful of performance upgrades. Introduced as a hot hatch at a time when such cars were just starting to gain popularity in the US, the X-11 combined the practicality of a hatchback with a peppy high-output engine and sport-tuned suspension. Under the hood, the X-11 featured a 135-horsepower high-output V6 engine, a respectable figure for a compact car in the early 1980s, paired with a manual or automatic transmission. The suspension was stiffened and lowered to improve handling, and wider wheels were fitted to give the car a planted stance. On the outside, the X-11 wore distinctive graphics and bold striping that wrapped around its body, signaling to onlookers that this was no ordinary Citation. The interior featured sport seats and unique trim to match its more aggressive persona. Despite these upgrades, the Citation X-11 was an odd fit in Chevrolet's lineup. It attempted to combine economy and sportiness, but never quite achieved either convincingly. Buyers often saw it as a compromise too small and quirky for muscle car fans, yet too flashy and expensive for economy car shoppers. As a result, it became one of the stranger chapters in Chevrolet's history, a hot hatch that never fully caught on. Today, the Citation X-11 is remembered as a curious experiment, a glimpse into the early days of America's hot hatch craze. Its blend of modest power, sporty styling, and compact practicality marks it as one of the more unusual and often overlooked cars in Chevrolet's 80s catalog. Number 25. 1977 Chevrolet Monza Mirage. The Monza Mirage was not your typical compact coupe. It was a bold statement by Chevrolet to inject some motorsport-inspired flair into an otherwise modest car. With a limited production run of roughly 4,000 units, it was a rare sight on American roads, but left a lasting impression thanks to its aggressive styling and vivid paintwork. The Mirage package featured massive, flared polyurethane fenders that gave the Monza an exaggerated wide-body look, flanking oversized wheels that seemed ready to tackle the racetrack. Complementing this were front and rear spoilers designed to improve aerodynamic grip, though their actual on-road effectiveness was debatable. The most eye-catching aspect was undoubtedly the bold red and blue racing stripes streaking over a crisp white body, evoking the colors of Chevrolet's factory racing teams. This livery wasn't just for show, it was Chevy's way of connecting everyday drivers with the thrilling world of professional motorsport. Under the hood, the Monza Mirage typically housed the familiar inline-4 or V6 engines common to the Monza lineup, rather than any serious race-bred power plants. This made the car more of a style statement than a performance beast, but the aggressive appearance certainly made up for it. Inside, the cabin was dressed up with sporty touches like special seat fabrics, a leather-wrapped steering wheel, and unique badging to reinforce the Mirage identity. While the Monza Mirage didn't revolutionize the compact car segment or dominate racetracks, it was a fascinating example of Chevrolet's willingness to experiment with motorsport-inspired design in the mass market. Today, the 1977 Monza Mirage remains a bizarre but beloved oddity, a colorful blast from the past that captured the spirit of 70s racing culture wrapped around an everyday coupe. Number 24. 1976 Chevrolet Blazer Chalet. Introduced at a time when outdoor adventure culture was booming, the Blazer Chalet was Chevrolet's attempt to capitalize on the growing popularity of overlanding, but with a uniquely American twist. Instead of buying a trailer or a full-size camper, Chevy offered buyers a factory-built package that transformed their SUV into a tiny, self-contained camper on wheels. What made the Blazer Chalet truly strange was the camper shell mounted directly on the Blazer's short wheelbase chassis. This pop-up fiberglass shell included everything a weekend warrior might need: a fold-out stove, a compact sink, bunk beds, and even small storage compartments cleverly integrated into the design. With the roof popped up, the interior space expanded vertically, allowing campers to stand upright, a rare luxury in such a compact unit. The conversion was thoughtfully done to maintain the vehicle's off-road capability, meaning owners could drive deep into the wilderness and still have a cozy place to sleep. Despite its clever concept, the Blazer Chalet was produced in very limited numbers, roughly 1,800 units, making it an unusual collector's piece today. The cramped interior and modest amenities meant it was far from a luxury RV, but its combination of SUV toughness and camper functionality was a unique solution to a specific niche. The Blazer Chalet's short lifespan and rarity add to its mystique as one of Chevrolet's strangest production oddities. While modern overlanding vehicles have taken the market by storm, the 1976 Blazer Chalet stands as an early, quirky pioneer, a time capsule of American ingenuity that combined the call of the wild with the comfort of home in a truly unexpected way. Number 23. 1975 Chevrolet Cosworth Vega. Chevrolet took its humble Vega platform and transformed it into a limited production performance machine, collaborating with the legendary British engineering firm Cosworth to develop a unique dual overhead cam, 16-valve, 2-liter engine. This engine was hand-built and fuel-injected, producing around 110 horsepower, which was impressive for a subcompact car at the time. The Cosworth Vega was designed to compete with European imports, offering American drivers a taste of exotic performance wrapped in a familiar package. But it wasn't just about the engine. The car featured upgraded suspension, better brakes, and distinctive styling cues like unique badging and bold stripes to set it apart from its more mundane siblings. With a top speed nearing 120 miles per hour and brisk acceleration, it was a surprise rocket in a market dominated by larger muscle cars and family sedans. However, the Cosworth Vega's story was not without its challenges. Early models suffered from reliability issues, including engine overheating and problems with the fuel injection system, which limited its appeal and sales. Only about 3,000 units were produced between 1975 and 1976, making it a rare and often overlooked chapter in Chevrolet's history. Its high price tag, which was close to that of a Corvette, also made it a tough sell for the average consumer. Today, the 1975 Cosworth Vega stands as a fascinating example of Chevrolet's willingness to experiment with blending high-tech performance and compact economy. It remains a cult classic among collectors and enthusiasts, a quirky, ambitious effort that tried to rewrite the rules of American performance in the mid-70s. Number 22. 1973 Chevrolet Corvette 4-rotor Aerovette. The Chevrolet Corvette 4-rotor, also known as the Aerovette, originally conceived as a way to propel the Corvette into the future with cutting-edge engine technology, the Aerovette featured a unique 4-rotor Wankel rotary engine that produced more than 390 horsepower. This compact, lightweight power plant was designed to sit behind the seats in a sleek, aerodynamic fiberglass body, giving the car a low center of gravity and an aggressive stance unlike any other Corvette before or since. The Aerovette's design was pure 70s, science fiction sharp, angular lines with a dramatic wedge shape, pop-up headlights, and an enclosed rear engine compartment with a glass hatch, showcasing the rotary engine beneath. Its mid-engine layout was a radical departure from the traditional front-engine Corvette, signaling Chevrolet's willingness to rethink the formula that had defined America's sports car for 2 decades. The cockpit was minimalist yet futuristic, with bucket seats, a digital dashboard, and controls that seemed more at home in a fighter jet than on the road. Despite its promise, the Aerovette's rotary engine proved problematic. Fuel economy was poor, and the complex rotary design was prone to reliability issues and high manufacturing costs. These challenges ultimately forced Chevrolet to abandon the rotary power plant and switch to a more conventional small-block V8 in the late 1970s, resulting in the car being renamed simply the Aerovette. Production plans were repeatedly delayed and eventually shelved altogether. Today, the 1973 Corvette 4-rotor Aerovette stands as a fascinating glimpse into what might have been a daring experiment in powertrain and design that never made it past the prototype stage. It remains one of Chevrolet's most intriguing and unusual concept cars, a symbol of innovation and ambition that pushed the boundaries of America's sports car heritage. Number 21. 1973 Chevrolet Corvette XP-819 GT 2-rotor. Unlike the traditional V8s that define the Corvette legacy, the XP-819 GT was powered by a 2-rotor Wankel rotary engine, a technology GM was investigating during the late 60s and early 70s. This compact, high-revving engine promised smooth power delivery and impressive performance, but it was a massive departure from the usual big-block muscle that Corvette fans expected. The XP-897 GT featured sleek European-inspired styling, with a low, aerodynamic body and a mid-engine layout that placed the engine behind the driver, a radical departure from the Corvette's usual front-engine setup. The design emphasized clean lines and a tapered rear end, giving it a sporty, almost exotic appearance that stood out among contemporaries. The interior was minimalistic yet driver-focused, with analog gauges and a simple dashboard that kept attention on the road and performance. Despite its promise, the rotary engine program was fraught with reliability and emissions issues, and GM ultimately abandoned it before the XP-897 GT could enter production. The car itself was primarily a test mule to evaluate the mid-engine configuration and rotary powertrain in a Corvette-sized package. Though it never made it to showrooms, the XP-897 GT influenced future Corvette designs and underscored Chevrolet's willingness to push technological boundaries. Today, the 1973 XP-897 GT remains a fascinating glimpse at what could have been a Corvette that dared to defy convention with rotary power and a mid-engine layout decades before these features became mainstream in supercars. Its existence is a testament to Chevrolet's experimental spirit and its readiness to challenge the status quo in pursuit of innovation. Number 20. 1972 Chevrolet Corvette XP-895 Reynolds Aluminum Corvette. In an era when American automakers were still focused mainly on steel bodies and traditional construction, Chevrolet partnered with Reynolds Metals Company to create a Corvette prototype that utilized aluminum extensively in its body and chassis. This was a bold move, aiming to reduce weight dramatically while maintaining the Corvette's signature performance and style. The XP-895 featured a fully aluminum monocoque chassis paired with aluminum body panels, a revolutionary combination that made the car significantly lighter than the steel-bodied production Corvettes of the time. The design was sleek and aerodynamic, with a long, low nose, pop-up headlights, and a sweeping fastback rear window that gave it a distinctly modern and European flair. Unlike many other concepts, this was a true engineering exercise, testing whether lightweight aluminum could deliver better performance without sacrificing durability. Power came from the same small-block V8 that powered the production Corvettes, but the reduced weight promised better acceleration, handling, and fuel efficiency, all critical factors, as the automotive world began grappling with the challenges of emissions regulations and rising fuel prices. Inside, the car was surprisingly production-ready, with a functional interior layout, racing bucket seats, and a simple but driver-focused dashboard. Despite its promise, the Reynolds aluminum Corvette never moved beyond the prototype stage. The cost of aluminum construction was deemed too high for mass production, and GM's conservative approach meant this advanced technology was shelved. Still, the 1972 XP-895 remains an important milestone, a glimpse into a lightweight future that wouldn't arrive in mainstream American cars for decades. Today, it stands as one of Chevrolet's most fascinating and forward-thinking experiments in materials engineering. Number 19. 1970 Chevrolet Camaro Kammback. Unlike the sleek fastback silhouette of the production Camaro, the Kammback featured a squared-off, extended roofline that terminated in a sharply vertical rear hatch, inspired by aerodynamic principles developed by German engineer Wunibald Kamm. The goal was to create a sporty yet practical vehicle with more interior space and improved aerodynamics. The concept was built by GM's design studio under the direction of Bill Mitchell, who envisioned the Kammback as a new kind of muscle car, one that could haul both groceries and serious speed. The unusual roofline gave the Camaro a completely different visual identity, trading its aggressive coupe profile for something that looked more European and vaguely Saab-like. The rear hatch opened upward, revealing a surprisingly large cargo area, which was unheard of in pony cars at the time. Inside, it featured the same dashboard and front seating arrangement as a standard Camaro, but the rear seats were modified to fold down, maximizing utility. It was powered by a standard V8 engine, likely a small block 350, making it just as capable on the road as its coupe sibling. The car even retained the long hood and aggressive front end that defined the Camaro's second generation. Despite its uniqueness, the Camaro Kammback never made it past the concept stage. GM feared there wasn't a market for a sporty station wagon and shelved the idea after a single prototype was built. Today, the 1970 Chevrolet Camaro Kammback stands as one of the brand's weirdest design detours, a mashup of muscle and utility that was decades ahead of the crossover trend. Number 18. 1969 Chevrolet Astro III. Designed at the height of America's obsession with space travel and jet-age aesthetics, the Astro III was an audacious attempt to imagine what personal transport might look like in the distant future. The result was a three-wheeled, low-slung fiberglass capsule that barely resembled a car at all. Its narrow nose, bubble canopy, and massive rear air intakes gave the illusion of flight even when parked. It had just one wheel at the front and two at the rear, with stabilizer fins extending out like the tail of a supersonic aircraft. Unlike anything else Chevrolet had ever created, the Astro III featured a tandem seating layout, with the passenger seated directly behind the driver, mimicking a military fighter jet. Getting inside required the entire canopy to lift forward, which exposed a cockpit with joystick-style controls instead of a conventional steering wheel. Under the skin was something just as bizarre, a gas turbine engine mounted behind the seats, which Chevrolet borrowed from its experimental engineering program. Though never drivable on public roads, the Astro III was functional enough to demonstrate its systems in motion for promotional videos and GM's traveling exhibits. The car's futuristic vision was so extreme that even in the wild world of concept vehicles, it stood out as a gleaming oddity. It didn't hint at a future Corvette or Impala, it hinted at a future where roads would be obsolete and jet propulsion would rule the highways. The 1969 Chevrolet Astro III remains a bizarre yet fascinating artifact of when American carmakers dreamed far beyond the pavement. Number 16. 1968 Chevrolet Astro II XP-880. The Chevrolet Astro II, officially known as XP-880, a mid-engine concept that dared to imagine a future Corvette with its heart behind the driver. Emerging at a time when European marques like Lamborghini and Ferrari were experimenting with mid-engine layouts, Chevrolet decided to explore whether America's favorite sports car could follow suit. The result was a stunning and surprisingly practical concept that walked the line between show car and production prototype. The Astro II was built on a custom chassis and featured a rear-mounted, longitudinally placed 427 cubic inch V8 engine, a serious power plant for a concept vehicle. Unlike the earlier Astro I, which was too low and impractical, the Astro II was designed with roadworthiness in mind, including realistic ride height, opening doors, and a usable trunk. The car's proportions were muscular yet elegant, with flowing lines, a long tail, and hidden headlamps, details that echoed the Corvette styling language but pushed it into exotic territory. One of the most unique aspects of the Astro II was its two-piece rear deck, which could be lifted for access to both the engine and luggage compartment. The interior was also surprisingly refined for a concept, featuring twin bucket seats, a center console, and futuristic instrumentation. It was fully drivable, and GM even created promotional footage of the car racing around test tracks to prove its potential. Despite all the buzz, the Astro II never reached production, largely because Chevrolet felt the Corvette's loyal audience wasn't ready to abandon the traditional front-engine layout. Still, the Astro II planted the seeds for ideas that would eventually grow into the Corvette Kate over 5 decades later. The 1968 Astro II remains one of Chevrolet's boldest and weirdest flirtations with European-style mid-engine engineering. Number 15. 1967 Chevrolet Astro I. The Chevrolet Astro I was a futuristic concept car that looked more like a spacecraft than something designed for the road. Introduced during the height of the space age, the Astro I was a low-slung, wedge-shaped coupe that embodied the optimistic spirit of late 60s futurism. With a height of only 35 inches, it was so low to the ground that drivers practically had to lie down to get inside. Chevrolet designed the Astro I not only to showcase dramatic styling, but also to test ideas in aerodynamics and packaging. The body was sculpted to reduce drag, featuring a clamshell canopy that lifted upward and forward to provide access to the interior. Rather than conventional doors, the entire front windshield and roof assembly functioned as the entrance, emphasizing the car's aircraft-like inspiration. Powering the Astro I was a rear-mounted, air-cooled flat-six engine borrowed from the Corvair, continuing Chevrolet's experimentation with alternative layouts during that era. The drivetrain layout allowed designers to keep the front profile extremely low, contributing to the car's radical wedge shape. The cabin featured tandem seating with the passenger directly behind the driver to save space and enhance the vehicle's narrow footprint. Inside, the dashboard was a futuristic arrangement of dials, toggle switches, and aircraft-style instrumentation. It even included a periscope viewing system in place of a conventional rear-view mirror. With its highly stylized looks, minimal ground clearance, and unusual proportions, the Astro I was never intended for production. Still, the 1967 Astro I remains one of Chevrolet's most visually striking and technically unconventional concept cars. It is remembered today as an imaginative exploration of what the future might look like through the lens of a mid-century design dream. Number 14. 1966 Chevrolet Electrovair II. Based on the standard Corvair body, the Electrovair II was General Motors' second attempt at building a fully electric version of the compact coupe, and this time, they pushed the boundaries even further. The gasoline engine was removed and replaced with a silver zinc battery pack and a GM-developed 115 horsepower electric motor, which was far more powerful than its predecessor's setup. With this upgrade, the Electrovair II could reportedly reach speeds of up to 80 miles per hour and had a driving range of approximately 40 to 80 miles, impressive figures for an electric car in the mid-60s. Unlike many other EV experiments of the time, the Electrovair II retained the clean styling and low profile of the Corvair, hiding its futuristic underpinnings beneath a familiar skin. Inside, the car remained largely unchanged from the gasoline-powered version, save for a few subtle indicators and controls related to the electric drivetrain. The battery pack, weighing over 1,000 pounds, was stored where the fuel tank and rear engine would have been, drastically altering the car's weight distribution. Engineers reinforced the suspension and chassis to handle the extra load, turning the Electrovare II into a legitimate, functioning electric prototype. However, the biggest limitation was the silver zinc battery itself, expensive, volatile, and incapable of withstanding repeated charging cycles, making the car unsuitable for production. Still, the 1966 Chevrolet Electrovare II stands as a visionary oddity, a moment when GM looked toward an electric future long before it was fashionable. It was bizarre, brave, and decades ahead of its time. Number 13. 1965 Chevrolet Turbo Titan III. Created during General Motors' heyday of experimental design, the Turbo Titan III was a working concept truck powered by a turbine engine instead of a conventional diesel. It marked the third and most advanced iteration in GM's line of futuristic turbine-powered big rigs. Under its massive rear cab shell was a GT309 gas turbine engine, a jet-age power plant that GM engineers adapted from aviation. The idea was to create a quieter, more efficient, and longer-lasting alternative to the noisy diesel engines that dominated trucking. The turbine could rev to a mind-boggling 35,000 RPM, far surpassing anything in a standard truck. Visually, the Turbo Titan III was unforgettable. It featured a low, cab-over layout with an enormous panoramic windshield that curved upward and over the driver's head, providing unparalleled visibility. Its sharp, angular body lines, chrome trim, and wraparound glass gave it a spaceship-like vibe, making it look like it belonged on the set of a 1960s sci-fi television show. Inside, the cabin was even more futuristic. The driver sat in a central cockpit with a control panel more akin to an aircraft than a truck. Dials, buttons, and toggles covered the dash, and a full instrument display sat directly in the driver's line of sight. Though never put into production, the Turbo Titan III served as a bold vision of what long-haul transportation could become. It remains one of Chevrolet's most daring and unusual ventures into heavy-duty vehicles. The 1965 Chevrolet Turbo Titan III was not just a truck, it was a dream of the future, forged in turbine, thrust, and chrome. Number 12. 1965 Chevrolet Mako Shark II. The Chevrolet Mako Shark II, also known as the XP-830. This stunning machine was the sequel to the original Mako Shark I, and it pushed design boundaries even further, foreshadowing what would eventually become the third-generation Corvette. Created under the guidance of Bill Mitchell, then Vice President of Design at General Motors, the Mako Shark II was inspired by the sleek, predatory shape of the ocean-dwelling Mako shark, and it absolutely looked the part. Its long, pointed nose, sharply creased fenders, and dramatic tapering tail made it seem more like a land-bound missile than a typical mid-60s car. The body featured exaggerated curves, hidden headlamps, and an aggressive stance that made it look fast even when standing still. Finished in a striking blue-to-silver gradient paint job that mimicked a shark's coloring, the Mako Shark II was one of the most visually stunning concept cars of the decade. Inside, the weirdness continued. The cabin was futuristic and cockpit-like, with a squared-off steering wheel, deep bucket seats, and an instrument panel that wrapped around the driver like the bridge of a spacecraft. Features such as fiber-optic lighting, power, everything, and adjustable pedals were unheard of in regular production cars at the time. While the Mako Shark II never saw production in its full concept form, its design heavily influenced the 1968 Corvette Stingray, proving that even the strangest dreams can shape the future. With its shark-like aggression and ahead-of-its-time features, the 1965 Chevrolet Mako Shark II stands out as one of the boldest concept cars Chevrolet ever dared to build. Number 11. 1964 Chevrolet Corvette XP-819. Developed under the guidance of legendary GM engineer Zora Arkus-Duntov, the XP-819 was a radical rear-engine sports car concept that explored the limits of design and balance. While all production Corvettes of the era featured front-mounted engines and rear-wheel drive, the XP-819 relocated the engine to the rear of the vehicle, completely transforming its proportions and dynamics. Its design was like no other Corvette before or after. The long, flat nose and abruptly truncated rear deck gave the car an odd teardrop shape, while its wedge-like profile hinted at the design direction that sports cars would later pursue in the 70s and 80s. The XP-819's fiberglass body was hand-built and featured exaggerated wheel arches, a panoramic windshield, and a low-slung cabin that made it look like a race car beamed in from the future. However, the XP-819's most bizarre aspect was its rear-mounted V8 engine. It utilized a unique transaxle setup and special cooling ducts to accommodate the engine's unusual location. But despite its innovative layout, the car suffered from extreme handling issues. The rear-biased weight distribution made it notoriously unstable at speed and prone to snap oversteer. It quickly became apparent that the rear engine configuration wasn't viable for production Corvettes, and the project was shelved. Only one XP-819 was ever built, and it spent decades in obscurity after a crash during testing. Eventually restored in the early 21st century, the XP-819 has become a cult favorite among collectors and Corvette enthusiasts. The 1964 Chevrolet Corvette XP-819 remains one of the weirdest, rarest, and most daring experiments in Corvette history, a one-off oddity that dared to defy expectations. Number 10. 1963 Chevrolet Bertone Testudo. Designed by the legendary Giorgetto Giugiaro for the Italian design house Bertone, the Testudo was built on the humble underpinnings of the Chevrolet Corvair, but its final form was anything but ordinary. The name Testudo means turtle in Italian, and the car's low, domed body with smooth curves and flush surfaces evoked the aerodynamic shell of the creature it was named after. The Testudo debuted at the Geneva Motor Show in March of 1963, instantly stunning crowds with its radically futuristic design. It featured a sharply tapered nose, pop-up headlights, and, perhaps most memorably, a one-piece canopy that lifted forward, merging windshield and roof into a single glass shell that opened like the jaw of a reptile. This daring design gave the car an incredibly low profile and removed traditional doors altogether, emphasizing clean lines and aerodynamics over practicality. Inside, the car continued its avant-garde theme with a minimalist interior, twin-spoke steering wheel, and pod-like instrument cluster angled toward the driver. The rear-mounted, air-cooled flat-six engine from the Corvair remained unchanged mechanically, but the Testudo was never about performance. It was about exploring the outer limits of design language. Though the Testudo never went into production, its influence can be seen in later designs from both Europe and America. It was a bold experiment that merged American engineering with Italian artistry, resulting in one of the most bizarre and beautiful Chevrolet-based concept cars ever created. Today, the 1963 Chevrolet Bertone Testudo stands as a unique and unforgettable fusion of two automotive cultures. Number 9. 1963 Chevrolet Corvair Monza SS. The Chevrolet Corvair Monza SS, a spectacular yet strangely unorthodox sports car prototype that blended American ambition with European flair. Unveiled in 1963 as a design, study, and concept car, the Monza SS, or Super Spider, was a radical departure from Chevrolet's typical design language, taking the unconventional Corvair platform to the outer edges of styling and innovation. At its core, the Monza SS was based on the air-cooled, rear-engine Corvair, but Chevrolet engineers completely reimagined its layout and form. The body was a sleek, low-slung fiberglass shell that looked like it had been plucked straight from an Italian design house, boasting dramatic curves, minimal overhangs, and a wraparound windshield that felt more sci-fi than street legal. It stood only 39 inches tall, giving it an ultra-low profile that emphasized its sporting intentions. Perhaps the most bizarre and fascinating feature of the Monza SS was its front-opening clamshell canopy, which served as both the windshield and roof. Instead of conventional doors, the entire canopy lifted forward to allow driver and passenger access a theatrical and futuristic touch rarely seen in American automotive design. Under the skin, the car featured a mid-rear mounted flat-six engine, an experimental repositioning compared to the Corvaire's standard rear layout, which hinted at Chevrolet's interest in exotic sports car dynamics. Although the Monza SS was never intended for production, it served as a styling and engineering showcase, influencing future sports car aesthetics and concept development. The 1963 Chevrolet Corvair Monza SS remains one of the weirdest and most alluring vehicles Chevrolet ever imagined, an audacious, beautiful machine that looked ready to conquer the roads of tomorrow. It was more than a prototype. It was a rolling piece of avant-garde automotive art. Number 8. 1962 Chevrolet Corvair Monza GT. Unveiled at the 1962 Chicago Auto Show, the Monza GT was a low-slung, mid-engine two-seater built on a modified Corvair platform, marking a radical departure from traditional American car design. Its sleek, aerodynamic body featured a canopy-style flip-forward roof, giving it the look and feel of a jet fighter rather than a family car. Designed by Larry Shinoda under the guidance of Bill Mitchell, the Monza GT was Chevrolet's statement that American manufacturers could compete with European sports cars not just in performance, but in cutting-edge design. The car's aluminum body was strikingly modern, with smooth curves and a tapering rear end that emphasized speed and efficiency. Covered rear wheels added to its aerodynamic profile, while the car sat incredibly low, just over 44 inches tall, giving it a dramatic, road-hugging stance. Inside, the cockpit was minimalist and driver-focused, with bucket seats and an instrument panel inspired by aircraft controls. The steering wheel was replaced by a yoke-style controller, and the entire cabin felt more like a spaceship than a car interior. Underneath, the Monza GT retained the Corvair's air-cooled flat-six engine, repositioned in the mid-engine layout to improve balance and handling. Though it never made it to production, the 1962 Corvair Monza GT had a lasting impact on Chevrolet's design philosophy and foreshadowed many elements that would appear in future Corvairs and even the Corvette Stingray. It remains a stunning example of American automotive daring, a weird and wonderful prototype that blurred the lines between car, aircraft, and spacecraft. Number 7. 1961 Chevrolet Corvair 95. Greenbrier Ramp Side. Unlike most trucks and vans of the era, the Corvair 95 was built on the Corvair's unique rear-engine platform, making it one of the very few American vehicles to combine rear-engine layout with commercial utility. This design choice gave the Corvair 95 a low floor height and excellent visibility for the driver, thanks to the cab-over-engine configuration, but also resulted in a driving experience unlike any other Chevrolet truck or van. The Greenbrier was a forward-control van designed primarily for cargo and passenger use, featuring a boxy, utilitarian body that maximized interior space. Its most distinct sibling, the ramp side, took innovation to the next level with a unique side-loading ramp built into the passenger side of the bed, a feature specifically designed to make loading bulky cargo easier. This side ramp was a clever solution that anticipated the needs of tradesmen and delivery drivers, giving the ramp side an unusual and practical edge in the marketplace. Under the rear floor, both models housed an air-cooled, flat-six engine, the same power plant used in the Corvair passenger cars, which was compact and lightweight but unconventional for trucks. While this rear-engine setup provided good traction, especially in slippery conditions, it also posed challenges with heat management and maintenance accessibility. The Corvair 95 series was powered by modest horsepower engines, which made these vehicles more suitable for light-duty tasks than heavy hauling. Though innovative and quirky, the Corvair 95 vans and pickups had a mixed reception due to their unconventional layout and performance limitations. Still, their distinctive styling, unique engineering, and clever features, like the ramp-side side ramp, make the 1961 Chevrolet Corvair 95 series one of the weirdest and most fascinating utility vehicles Chevrolet ever produced. It remains a beloved oddity among collectors and enthusiasts who appreciate its blend of practicality and eccentricity. Number 6. 1960 Chevrolet Corvair. This was one of Chevrolet's most unconventional and controversial production cars ever made. Introduced in 1960 as a compact, rear-engined, air-cooled vehicle, the Corvair was a bold departure from Chevrolet's typical front-engine, water-cooled lineup. Its flat-six engine was mounted in the rear, much like the Volkswagen Beetle, challenging American automotive norms and creating a unique driving experience. The Corvair's design was sleek and modern for its time, with smooth, aerodynamic lines that helped it stand out in a market dominated by bulky sedans and station wagons. Inside, the car offered a comfortable ride with innovative features such as a rear swing axle suspension, though this design later became a source of safety concerns and controversy. The Corvair was available in several body styles, including coupe, sedan, convertible, and station wagon, making it versatile and appealing to a broad audience. Despite its innovative engineering, the Corvair faced significant criticism, especially after Ralph Nader's 1965 book, Unsafe at Any Speed, highlighted alleged safety issues related to its handling. This controversy affected the Corvair's reputation and sales, but the car remains a fascinating example of American automotive risk-taking during a period of rapid change. Mechanically, the rear-engine layout provided a unique driving feel with good traction, but also required drivers to adapt to its quirks. The 1960 Chevrolet Corvair also marked a rare moment when an American automaker seriously explored air-cooled engines and rear-engine packaging ideas that were more common in European cars. Its boldness and departure from tradition make it one of the strangest and most historically significant Chevrolets ever produced. Today, the Corvair is appreciated by collectors and enthusiasts for its distinctive character and place in automotive history. Number 5. 1959 Chevrolet El Camino. Introduced in 1959, the El Camino was Chevrolet's answer to the Ford Ranchero, combining the sleek styling of a two-door station wagon with the practicality of a pickup truck bed. This innovative coupe utility design gave buyers the best of both worlds, a vehicle that could haul cargo like a truck, but drive and look like a car. The El Camino was built on the full-size Chevrolet platform of the time, which meant it shared many components with the popular Bel Air and Impala models. Underneath its smooth, stylish exterior, the El Camino offered a range of engine options, from inline sixes to powerful V8s, making it versatile enough for daily driving, work, or even performance-oriented use. Its unique body style featured a front end identical to Chevy sedans, seamlessly transitioning into an open pickup bed without the traditional truck's boxy cabin. What made the 1959 El Camino especially weird and wonderful was how it blurred automotive categories at a time when cars and trucks were very distinct. It was neither fully car nor fully truck, creating a niche that appealed to a diverse set of buyers, from farmers needing light-duty hauling to style-conscious urban drivers wanting something different. The El Camino's success inspired many similar vehicles over the years, including its own long production run and multiple redesigns. Though it began as a bold experiment, the 1959 Chevrolet El Camino ultimately became an iconic American classic, beloved for its quirky combination of style and function. Its legacy endures as a symbol of Chevrolet's willingness to challenge conventions and innovate in unexpected ways. Number 4. 1959 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray Racer XP-87. Chevrolet Corvette Stingray Racer, officially known as the XP-87, a groundbreaking race car turned concept that forever altered the design language of the Corvette lineage. Conceived under the visionary direction of Chevrolet's legendary chief designer Bill Mitchell, the Stingray Racer was built as a dedicated race car intended to compete in endurance events, but quickly became a stunning showcase of futuristic design and engineering prowess. The XP-87 featured an ultra-low, sleek body crafted from lightweight fiberglass, with a teardrop-shaped cockpit and sharply pointed nose that made it one of the most aerodynamic and aggressive-looking Corvettes ever created. Its minimalist and purposeful design was a radical departure from the production Corvettes of the era, emphasizing speed, agility, and visual impact over practicality. Powered by a small-block V8 producing around 300 horsepower, the Stingray Racer demonstrated impressive performance on the track and proved that American sports cars could compete with European rivals. Beyond its mechanical capabilities, the Stingray Racer was perhaps most influential for its design cues, which directly inspired the iconic split-window 1963 Corvette Stingray Coupe. Its sharp lines, aggressive stance, and signature Stingray profile set the aesthetic tone for future Corvettes, embedding itself deeply in American automotive culture. The XP-87's racing origins and bold styling made it stand out as both a competitive machine and a visionary concept car. Though the Stingray Racer never entered mass production, its impact resonated for decades, representing a perfect blend of form and function that few cars achieve. The 1959 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray Racer remains a legendary and beautifully weird milestone in Chevrolet's history, a race car that rewrote the rulebook and left an indelible mark on the Corvette legacy. Number 3. 1956 Chevrolet Corvette Impala XP-101. Chevrolet Corvette Impala, officially known as the XP-101, a remarkable and unusual concept that blended the sportiness of the Corvette with the practicality of a 4-passenger car. Unveiled at the 1956 General Motors Motorama, the XP-101 was essentially a stretched Corvette with an extended wheelbase to accommodate a rear seat, transforming the typically 2-seat sports car into a more versatile 4-seater. This was a daring departure from the Corvette's usual focus on performance and driver engagement, signaling Chevrolet's interest in exploring new market niches and body styles. The XP-101's body was made of lightweight fiberglass, like the production Corvette, but its proportions were elongated and elegant, with sleek lines that hinted at both speed and comfort. The front end featured the classic Corvette grille and dual headlights, while the rear incorporated subtle tail fins, reflecting the design trends of the mid-50s. Its two-tone paint schemes and chrome accents added a touch of glamour, emphasizing its concept car status. Underneath, the XP-101 shared mechanical components with the standard Corvette, including the small block V, but its extended frame was a clear experiment in mixing sports car performance with family-friendly utility. Inside, the car offered more spacious seating than the typical Corvette, with a rear bench seat that allowed it to carry more passengers, a rare trait for American sports cars of the era. Despite the intriguing concept, the XP-101 never moved beyond the show car stage, as Chevrolet chose to keep the Corvette a dedicated 2-seater sports car. Nonetheless, the 1956 Chevrolet Corvette Impala XP-101 remains a fascinating and strange footnote in automotive history, a unique blend of Corvette flair and Impala practicality that could have rewritten Corvette's legacy. Number 2. 1955 Chevrolet Biscayne XP-37. Debuted at the 1955 General Motors Motorama, the XP-37 was a pillarless 4-door coupe designed to introduce Chevrolet's new small-block V8 engine in a spectacular and innovative package. The car's low-slung, sleek body featured a wraparound windshield and remarkably smooth, flowing lines that seemed almost aerodynamic for its time, signaling a sharp break from the boxy styling typical of the early 50s. One of the most striking aspects of the XP-37 was its door design. It featured no external door handles or pillars, creating an uninterrupted side profile that made the car appear as a single, flowing piece of metal and glass. This pillarless design gave the car a futuristic and almost spaceship-like aesthetic, captivating audiences and hinting at a future where cars would become sleeker and more streamlined. The interior was just as forward-thinking, featuring wraparound seating and a dashboard designed to integrate with the car's overall fluid form. The XP-37's engineering was equally impressive, as it was one of the first vehicles to showcase Chevrolet's groundbreaking small-block V8 engine, a power plant that would go on to become one of the most influential engines in automotive history. Though the XP-37 itself never entered production, many of its styling cues and mechanical innovations filtered into Chevrolet's production cars in the late 1950s and beyond. Today, the 1955 Chevrolet Biscayne XP-37 remains an iconic example of mid-century automotive imagination and innovation, a daring concept that pushed the limits of design and technology, making it one of the weirdest and most fascinating cars Chevrolet ever dreamed up. Number 1. 1954 Chevrolet Corvette Nomad. Introduced at the 1954 GM Motorama as part of the famed Corvette Quartet, the Nomad was a visionary fusion of styles that challenged conventional automotive categories. With a Corvette front end seamlessly merged to a sleek, sporty station wagon body, the Nomad sported an innovative design that was both striking and unconventional for its time. The car's styling was ahead of its era, featuring clean lines, curved glass panels, and a two-door layout that was rare for a wagon. The Nomad's rear cargo area was designed for utility, yet it retained a low, athletic stance that hinted at performance rather than mere practicality. This combination made the Nomad a unique proposition, blending Chevrolet's sports car identity with family-friendly versatility. Underneath its fiberglass body, the Nomad shared mechanical components with the contemporary Corvette, including a V8 engine that delivered spirited performance. The interior was crafted with attention to detail, combining comfort and style to appeal to buyers seeking both utility and sportiness. However, despite the positive reception, the Nomad concept never entered production, as Chevrolet decided to keep the Corvette focused on the traditional two-door sports coupe format. Today, the 1954 Chevrolet Corvette Nomad is regarded as one of the most unusual and imaginative Corvettes ever created. Its bold blending of the sport wagon and Corvette themes makes it a standout in Chevrolet's rich history of concept car. The Nomad remains a fascinating what-if, a beautiful, quirky, and truly weird vehicle that showcased Chevrolet's willingness to experiment and dream big in the early days of the Corvette legacy.